Finally, I decided I had to go when I was quite capable of picking my own apartment, picking the place I wanted, furnishing the place I wanted, and getting rid of my house, because if you wait too long, then it becomes a problem. And then other people make decisions for you, and I would never be that happy.
My reason for moving here was that I had spent about 6 or 7 years living by myself at home after my wife died, and I liked it. I thought it was a good thing to do, but it became more and more of a burden, and so I started looking around for a place to, you hit 90, you start thinking that maybe this isn't the best thing.
If you live in a house that's got stairs and lots of stuff and lots of room, and you're required to therefore cook for yourself and do all the rest, and you're no longer able to do those things, then the next step is senior housing. And senior housing is something you need to book well in advance, because you can't assume that you can move into it like a Motel 6.
And I would advise them not to wait to fall. That's kind of an arbitrary thing that I felt several times in 2017, but got myself a cane, and I haven't fallen really since then. But a fall shouldn't be the deciding it. It's how are you coping with what you have at home already?
You have to really address who you are and what the end of your life means to you. And the end of my life means to me to try to hold out to be as active and as to involved as possible. And that was not happening as I was living by myself and away from most people my own age.
But I am also not alone when I don't want to be. And I can find activities in my building if I have nothing to do that day.
You get a lot of services that you need when you have reduced activities of daily living. You can get this service, you can get food, you can get someone to help you with this and that. It's not something you want to do before you have to do it. It's one of those decisions you should do a week before you need to do it rather than a week after you need to do it.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman.
Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village SF, a nonprofit providing older adults in San Francisco with support to help age in place. Also by the Fromm Institute for Lifelong Learning and Shannon Greavy of A Bigger Room. I'm your co-host, Lynn Winter Gross.
Today on Not Born Yesterday, we're examining living choices. When many people think of retirement, where they will live often becomes topic number one. Should we stay in our paid-off, too large home, just in case the kids and grandkids want to come to visit? Or should we move to a smaller, less expensive place in a new neighborhood and perhaps discover an interesting and more fulfilling place for our golden years? If we move, should we live near our children and grandchildren, go to some warm weather area or golf community?
What about our mental health if we're living alone? How will we socialize if many of our friends have already died or moved away? Many seniors say, I'll move when I need to, but often the choice comes suddenly. They fall or become ill. They go to rehab and someone else may have to make the decision for them.
These are important issues, whether you are retiring as a couple or as a single person. It's usually easier to postpone these difficult and confusing options than to deal with them. But let's get real, as the young folks say. If you know what you want, you can make a plan, but first you need to know your options. Our guest today is Brent Hensley, Senior Care Advisor and owner of Assisted Living Locators. Brent and his team work with older adults and their families to provide information and support to simplify the search, understand the options, and find the best care and living options.
Brent, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
We understand that most older adults want to age in place. They want to stay in their familiar surroundings. They're comfortable with what they know. What brings people to the point where they seek out an agency like yours to help them think through their options as they get older?
You're right in that A majority of seniors do want to stay at home as long as possible. And as much as I'm a big proponent of assisted living, I want our senior community to stay at home as long as they have a home where they can navigate when their mobility changes, or they're still living in a safe environment. So people come to me at a lot of different stages. Unfortunately, the majority is when the children of the seniors come to me and say, you know what, mom and dad cannot, there's something changed in their health condition, or they're losing their mobility, or something's changed overall, and we're questioning whether or not they can live independently at home. And so, there's a couple of options there. It could be to bring in additional home care if they don't have it, so that they can, get help with normal activity, daily activities of living, or it could be time to think about assisted living where they move out of the home and move into a community. So it really depends.
So what should one look for when they visit a senior facility for the first time, and how do they determine if it's a good fit?
Sure. So that's where I come in. So when I have a new client and they engage with my services, I do a really thorough intake to see things like, of course, location, what are their interests? They might have hobbies that could kind of align with the choices of communities that we look at. Budget, of course, is a big one. And then I kind of think about all the communities that I work with and the location that they're looking for, and I can consolidate down to about three choices. So when you enter the community, I've already done one layer of sort of narrowing it down and what I think is the best fit. But I always tell my clients, look at just the feeling that you get when you go walk into the community. Can you picture yourself living there? Look at the other residents. Do you think that maybe you can bond with them? Do they seem like, are they like you? Do you think that they might have the same interests? And so just the overall feeling when you walk in during the tour is a big part of it, because a lot of the communities have the same amenities and social activities, but it really comes down to the feeling of the overall community and the residents that you feel commonalities with.
So we're talking about the different kinds of facilities available for seniors today. So maybe we could start with the differences between active adult communities, independent living facilities, and assisted living. What are the advantages of each, and what are the disadvantages?
Sure. Okay, sure. So there's kind of, I like to call three different flavors of assisted living in California. So RCFEs, which is residential care facilities for the elderly. That's a more kind of a month-to-month rental scenario where someone will come in, depending on the size of the unit that they're looking for, studio, one bedroom, and of course their care needs coming into the community. There's that included in that is the 3 meals a day, social activities, all the utilities, housekeeping, laundry, the works. But it's generally at a price point that's a little bit more affordable for seniors. And then these type of the RCFEs tend to be they have independent living, assisted living, and then memory care. So it's kind of a mix of types of residents. And then the other flavor is called a CCRC, Continuing Care Retirement Community. These are like I call them the country clubs of assisted living, where it really is a true continuum of care where they have independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing on site, as well as memory care. These do tend to be more expensive because the entrance fees are higher. You're making an upfront investment into your stay in the community within lower monthly fees. I find that people that are attracted to the CCRCs are really looking more on the independent living side. They go in their late 60s, early 70s. They're looking for those luxurious amenities and the social connections and great events. And so yeah, there's different types of contracts within a CCRC that I don't want to go into, but there's definitely some advantages on some of them, because you can get it's the age and place concept where you're going to go in your 70s and spend throughout the rest of your life in the community. You can get some discount on future care needs. And then the final one is a residential care home, where here in California we call those board and cares. And those are private homes that have been converted into a place that seniors can receive care. Most are licensed for about 6 people or 6 residents or less. They're under the same care regulations as a normal assisted living community. And I tend to recommend these for my clients that have a little bit tighter budgets. They tend to be a little bit less expensive than a normal assisted living community. And because of the small nature of board and cares, they have a really high staff to resident ratio. So that can be really useful if the senior has higher care needs. Sometimes the board and cares can accommodate higher care needs than the assisted living community.
So one thing I didn't quite understand, you talk about memory care as kind of the most intensive, I guess. What about someone who's been living in independent or assisted living and doesn't have memory issues but has other health issues? Where do they fit in?
They would fit in assisted living. So they are, still participating with other independent living residents. They can still engage in the same activities. They dine together, but the care that they're receiving is in the privacy of their apartment. So whatever, when you go into a community, the community they require a doctor's or a physician's report from your physician to see what your general state of care is. And then also they will do an in-person assessment to see, okay, does this match up with the physician's report? And based on that, they come up with a care plan. And that care plan is the type of care that you need. But it doesn't really some communities do have assisted living, independent living in separate parts of the community, but it's still one big community and you're still participating together with the independent residents, versus the residents that are requiring some level of care.
You mentioned costs. How do these costs compare to having an in-home caregiver?
It ranges from about $40 to $60 an hour. And, typically a starting care plan might be 4 hours a day, 3 times a week, depending on the care needs. And, they can start there and continue to up the amount of in-home care that they need until such time it really is a time to look for assisted living. So it is very much less expensive to a point. Now, I do see families that are very adamant that they want their mother or father or the senior to stay at home through end of life. And, full-time 24/7 care can be upwards of $300,000 a year. But, that's their prerogative to keep the family at home. But you will hit a tipping point where it is less expensive for them to be in assisted living than to continue to up the level, the number of hours with home care.
Since you talk to the people before they see any place, what are they most concerned about when they think about moving into it? Are they worried that they're going to lose something familiar with their own home? Are they anxious about downsizing, getting rid of things that they've been keeping close to them for a long time? Are they worried about making new friends?
Yeah, so we hit the nail on the head when we talked about downsizing, because a lot of people have, lived in a home for a long time. They have decades of belongings and memories, and just the idea that they're going to have to consolidate down to a 2 bedroom or sometimes a 1 bedroom is so overwhelming that can actually be the reason that they know they need assisted living, but they really procrastinate because they don't want to go through that process. Another reason could be how, I've lived a fairly isolated life. I have my circle of friends, that I interact with. What's it going to be like to live in a community where I'm around a lot of people and a lot of seniors, and I need my alone time, so that's often a concern. So those are the two biggest ones. Of course, it depends on when they are kind of on the cycle of needing care. A lot of times the family will unfortunately allow them to continue to live at home well beyond what really is needed. And then when there's a fall that happens or a hospitalization and then rehab, then they come to me, and then that sense of urgency is really sped up.
Do you think the availability of more health-related technology and the availability of kind of AI in the homes and places like that are going to affect the future models for senior living?
Yeah, we're already seeing it where they're integrating a lot of fall monitoring and monitoring within the actual community so that family can have a certain level of interaction from the room of the resident. So, I don't know what that's going to look like in terms of AI, but I'm already seeing it as it's almost it makes the community more marketable that the family feels like they can have a little bit more oversight into the resident in the community and feel and I've also seen it where they have new platforms so that the seniors can be connected to their families and the families can log in and look at what's the latest care report, what did mom and dad do today. So I definitely think that's the future where the technology will be able to integrate the family more into the day-to-day living of the resident in the assisted living community.
Years ago, I met a woman who was a social worker in a senior community, and she said the biggest surprise to her was that a new resident will come and they'll go into the dining room the first day. And sometimes a person walks in and three people will get up from different tables and come over and say, "Oh, come sit with us, welcome." Other people will come the first day, they'll walk in and everyone ignores them. So I wonder if you have advice for newcomers who are going into these places, how to get over that high school type of where's the best table to sit. How can someone make themselves feel welcome?
I would recommend that during the touring process that you ask the questions, is there some sort of ambassador role or someone that's focused on the community for new residents to try to connect them to, and introduce them to people in the dining room and encourage them to participate in activities. Because it definitely can be a little bit like high school at the beginning where, same people sit together every day. So try to have the community sort of help to bridge that gap. And then the other recommendation I would say is get involved with the social activities as soon as possible because the real connections to meet other residents are made through those activities. So the more involved you get early on, the more integrated in the community you're going to feel.
Do you have any final advice for somebody sitting at home listening to this and saying, I don't know, I just don't know if it's time. I don't know how to decide?
Yeah, I often encourage my clients, come to me well before you think that you're ready for assisted living. Let's talk about, you can learn about what it actually is. We can tour together, you can explore options, and then at least you have that knowledge going in. And then whatever time, I often say, what are the things that need to happen for you to feel ready? And I actually have them sort of make a list, what from now until when you're ready, what are those things? And then we can work towards that time frame. But I'd say get prepared before you actually need, when the sense of urgency hits, because then when you have a fall or there's a care concern and you can't live safely in your home anymore, then your choices are much more limited and the costs are higher going into the community. So I would say preparation is really key.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Brent, for the valuable information. There's so much to consider when we're making these decisions about such an important time in our lives. Our guest was Brent Hensley of Assisted Living Locators.
Thank you so much.
Today on News You Can Use, we want to help you keep your brain active and involved. Whether you loved or hated school, now is a great time to learn about things you wish you had known before, like the stock market, or entirely new subjects like maybe the history of opera, or upgrade a subject already of interest to you, like maybe World War II. And just like your heart, your brain needs to be exercised to stay healthy. Retirement is a great time to take classes, no report cards or grades.
Lifelong learning is a term that's been added to the education lexicon. The lifelong or extended or continuing education labels refer to those courses offered at colleges and universities for students who aren't necessarily looking for credits but want to continue their education. This business, for it really is a business, is now a $6 billion industry, which is destined to keep growing as our population ages. Begun in the 1960s, when the Institute of Retired Professionals was created in New York, there are now than 400 continuing education type courses, both for profit and nonprofit. The Fromm Institute in San Francisco is an example in the San Francisco Bay Area where students can attend in person or from anywhere in the world via Zoom. If a semester or several weeks seems too long for a commitment, there are even day-long courses in serious subjects often taught by professors from Ivy League colleges. Other programs offer week-long seminars and vacation settings in the summer. After all, we're probably the best educated generation in history, and we've been brought up to value education. Check your local centers of higher education and libraries for the most up-to-date listings.
And don't forget all the things available on the internet. Language classes are a good place to start, especially if you're planning to travel abroad. Learning a language by computer enhances your computer skills, keeps your brain active, and of course, teaches you the basic language skills you need. Any chance to learn something new is like a health club for the brain.
And that's our podcast for today. Our thanks to our guest, Brent Hensley of Assisted Living Locators. You can learn more about Next Village San Francisco at their website, nextvillagesf.org. For more information on Fromm Institute's lifelong learning, visit fromminstitute.org. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds, and Jason Dahlstadt is our engineer. Shannon Greavy of A Bigger Room is our social media consultant. And we thank you for listening. We'd love to hear what you would like us to discuss and discover. Please contact us at notbornyesterdaypodcast.org and follow us on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. All of these are free and help us to know our audience better. Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.